In this video, we will be learning how to solve equations that involve absolute value. What is absolute value? Well, the absolute value of a real number is the distance from 0 on a number line. And since it's distance, that distance is always positive. So when solving an equation that says the absolute value of x equals to 2, you are asked to find numbers that have a distance of 2 from 0 on the number line. So here's 0. Well, I can go 2 units that way and get to positive 2. But I can also go 2 units to the left and get to negative 2. So what two numbers have an absolute value of 2? Well, those numbers would be negative 2 and positive 2. Let's just say that again. The absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2 because it's 2 units from 0 on the number line. And the absolute value of positive 2 is 2 because it is also 2 units from 0 on a number line. So that distance is always positive. So here you're asked to find a number that has a negative distance. Is that possible? No. That has no solution. Again, because the distance is positive, that's not possible. But what about this one? What number or numbers have a 0 distance from 0? Well, only one number. 0. So look at our possibilities. This states that you can either have 2 solutions, no solution, or you could have 1 solution. Of course, all your problems are not going to be this easy. So let's look at a process. The first thing you want to do is you want to isolate that absolute value expression so you can analyze it. Is it equal to a negative number? Well, if it is, then there's no solution. If that expression is equal to a positive number, then you're going to have 2 solutions. And again, because on that number line, you can go to the right of 0 or to the left of 0. And so that's why we're going to write 2 equations and write one equal to the positive number and one equal to the negative number. And if it's equal to 0, then of course you have 1 solution. And so you're just going to solve that equation without absolute value bars. That's probably the easiest. Let's look at this first example. Is our absolute value all by itself on the equal sign? Yes, it is. And it's equal to a positive number. So what do we want to do? We want to split it into 2 equations. We're going to write it as is, expression equals to the number, and then we're also going to write it equal to the negative number, and then solve those separately. So here we're going to subtract 5 and divide by 2. Here we're going to subtract 5, so if I subtract 5 I get a negative 18 and divide by 2. So those are my 2 answers. Again, I have 2 solutions. Some books write that as a solution set, positive 4 and negative 9. Let's look at these next examples. Is our absolute values isolated? No. What that means, is there anything else on the side of the equal sign with it? Yes, there is. So here we need to add 3 first. So we have the absolute value equals to 14. That's very key. You have to do that first. Then what kind of number do we have over here? We have positive. So that tells us I have 2 solutions. So I'm going to write 2 equations, one equal to the positive number, one equal to the negative number, and solve. So I'm going to add 4 to each side, and I'm going to divide by 3. That's one solution. Here I'm going to add 4 to each side and divide by 3. Again, we have two solutions. You can check by plugging them back into the original equation, but make sure, so if I plugged in 6 here, 3 times 6 is 18, minus 4 is 14, and the absolute value of 14 minus 3 is 11. And you can check it if you would like, but I'm pretty sure we've done it correctly. Example 3, we have to do a little bit more work to isolate that absolute value. What do we need to do first? I think we need to subtract 5. And then, since this is being multiplied by that absolute value, that inverse operation is to divide by 2. Okay. So what are some things that you might want to try but would be wrong? Okay, first of all, you cannot distribute. Okay, you can't distribute inside an absolute value sign. So that 2 in there is a no-no. All right, you need to just get that absolute value by itself by using those inverse operations. All right, so now we have it in the format of absolute value equals to a positive number again. So I need to write two equations, one equal to the positive number and one equal to the negative number. Okay, so I'm going to add 5 and divide by 2. I'm going to add 5. When I add 5 over here, I get positive 2, and divide by 2, I get 1. I like this example because it shows you that your two answers are not necessarily a positive and a negative answer. Sometimes you can have two positives, two negatives. You just have to do the work. All right, so we have a solution set of 1 and 4. Let's look at these next examples. Absolute value is not by itself. All right, that's what that means, to isolate that. So what do I need to do to get rid of that plus 4? I need to subtract 4. This equals to 0. If you go back to your notes, if it's equal to 0, how many solutions are we going to have? Just one. Because looking at a number line, there's only one solution because only one number has an absolute value of 0. So if you're looking at your notes, it says to just remove the absolute value bars and solve as is. So we're going to subtract 1 and divide by 2. And that's our one solution. So when we're equal to 0, we only have one solution. Here, we need to isolate that absolute value by subtracting 9. And look at there, I get 0. What do I do with that 2 in front? Well, just like on that other example, since it's being multiplied, I need to divide. And 0 divided by 2 is still 0. And so again, I have one solution. So I remove the absolute value bars and just solve. So isolate that absolute value and then analyze. Are you equal to a positive number? You're going to get two solutions. Equal to 0, you're going to get one solution. What was that other possibility? Equal to something negative? Maybe that's what we're going to have here. We need to isolate that absolute value. So I have 4x minus 1. Oops, well, what am I doing? I'm subtracting 7. Negative 4. Still have to isolate, so I'm going to divide by positive 4. And so I have an absolute value equal to something negative. Not possible. No solution. We have a symbol for that. You can use that symbol for no solution. Now number 7 is kind of tricky. Let's go through it step by step. We have to isolate that. And what's tricky for most students is this part. That doesn't mean 5 times, that means to 5 minus, and that's a positive 5. So the first thing I need to do is subtract 5. And I get positive 2. So I don't want to lose that negative sign, I've just subtracted the 5. So that's like a negative 1 being multiplied. So I'm going to divide by negative 1. And I get -2, so I have absolute value means can I have a distance of -2? No, distance is always positive. So that is no solution. So going back to your process, remember we need to isolate and look at what kind of number then the expression is equal to. If it's negative, no solution, you don't have to do any work. If it's positive, you have to break it up into two equations and get two solutions. And if it's a 0, it's just one solution. Pretty easy work.